Python Essentials 2 Module 3 quiz. A subclass is usually a twin of its superclass, no, more specialized than its superclass, or more general than its superclass. Subclass, of course, has to be more specialized and give more specialty to the subclass. So, for example, if a subclass is a vehicle, if the superclass is a vehicle, the subclass could be like a bicycle or a boat or a car or train, more specialized, more defined. An object is characterized by the following three: name, owner, possession, no; properties, estates, lands, that makes sense; name, properties, and activities. Yes, this is the correct answer. So object has to have a name, then it has to have some attributes or properties, and it has to be able to do something with these properties or something to the outside world. And these are activities or methods. An alternative name for a data structure called a stack is. So stack is first in, last out. And that makes it last in, first out. It's the same thing, so it makes it LIFO. Last in, first out. Yeah, this is correct. So if we have something in the stack already, we put just one thing on the top. This will be the last in, and whenever we will take this last thing out. This will be the first out. A variable that exists as a separate being in separate objects is called the instance variable. And these two other options, they do not make sense. A function able to check if an object is equipped with a given property is named. So property in objects or classes, it's called an attribute, and the proper function call for this is hasAttr. Is there a way to check if a class is a subclass of another class? Yes, there is one way. It is called isSubclass. This is a class method. So yeah, there is the function able to do that. The function named super may be used too. So super returns a reference to the superclass of the current class or an object. So it accesses superclass attributes and or methods. That looks like the correct option. It does not make a class super, and it does not make a class better. It can only access the superclass attributes or methods. A user-defined exception. It may be derived from the exception class. That is correct. It must be derived from the exception class, not necessarily. It must not be derived from the exception class. This is completely wrong. So it may be derived from the exception class, but it does not have to. You can define your exception based on nothing whatsoever. Just, I want this exception to be like that, and just kind of write the code for this exception handling the way you want, right? So for example, how this exception will be converted to a string for your error output into the console, you just can define it yourself. But you can also derive your exception as a kind of subclass of the exception class and leverage whatever functionality this exception class already has in your class, just inheriting this functionality. Select the true statements, and there are two. The finally branch of the try statement is always executed. This is correct. So finally is always executed no matter what, whether there was no exception or there was an exception which was caught and processed in one of the except clauses, or there was an uncaught exception. So finally will always be executed. The args property is tuple, designed to gather all arguments passed to the class constructor. args property is a tuple designed to gather all arguments passed to the class constructor. Yes, I think args is a tuple, so that looks correct to me. Anyway, let's check other two. You cannot define new exceptions as subclasses derived from predefined exceptions. You can, as I have just explained in the previous question. The finally branch of the try statement may be executed if special conditions are met. This is not correct. It is always executed. So option 1 and 2 here are correct. What is the output of the following code? So what we do here, we import math and we print math.power and we indicate the argument here, argument of 2. And this code is erroneous, right? Because this POW function is actually a power of, and it takes exactly 2 arguments. So 1 argument is not enough to call this function. So the question is, what type of error will be raised when this call is made? Whether it is a type error or maybe some other. So because there is exception here happening, else will never be executed. So B is not an option. It's either A for type error, or there will be an uncaught value error exception. In that case, I think it will be the type error, because I feel like when there is the function is called with misshaped arguments, it is more like a type problem rather than the value error problem. I do not know for sure, but I feel like it should be the type error exception raised by this function call, and then it will be caught by this except clause, and that will print A. Let's check A. And that was the last question. Let's check for errors in the results.